Hey, friends. If you are building a movement and not just a moment, you need a strategy that matches your ambition. That's why I am very excited to invite you to GiveCon. It's May 17th through the 20th in St. Louis. It's Bloomerang's annual conference designed just for nonprofits, packed with sessions on some of my favorite things: donor retention, AI, automation, major gifts, recurring revenue, of course, and community-driven campaigns that move people and inspire them to give. So you will leave this event with very practical tools, smarter strategies, and the momentum and people to push your mission further. So if you're ready to turn some insights into impact, you can go over and register now at givecon.com. That's givecon.com. If you've ever been the only fundraiser in the room, running the gala, managing a walk, fielding board questions about why an auction underperformed, fielding questions from donors all in the same week or even the same day, today's guest has been exactly where you are. Andrew Edwards spent years on the front lines of nonprofit fundraising, from coaching small shops where one person does everything to scaling 60 plus events nationally at the Epilepsy Foundation. That range gave him a view most event directors don't have, and that is what fundraisers actually need versus what conferences typically deliver. Now, as the event director at Bloomerang, Andrew is building GiveCon into something different. It's a conference designed by someone who's had to justify the travel budget, sit in the sessions, and go home with something that really moves the needle. So in this conversation today, we are getting into what makes a conference worth your time, how to make the case for investment in your leadership, how to network and plan for an event, and who Andrew believes most needs to be in St. Louis, May 17th through the 20th at GiveCon. And if you want to join him there, use code M2M for $200 off your registration. The link is in the show notes. Andrew, welcome to Missions to Movements.
Fundraisers don't necessarily need more ideas. I think what fundraisers really need, though, is the clarity to determine what matters most and the confidence to focus on the right things. Small organizations need more of that system and focus, where I think the larger organizations, once they've matured out of that small organization, they're going to need a little bit more alignment and scalability. Fundraisers are going to have to take away what are those time-saving strategies and proven strategies that are actually going to help them do the work.
Okay, so Andrew, you've done a lot in your history. And so I want to give a little bit of background for people. So you've run national peer-to-peer campaigns, galas.
Yeah.
You've done walk events. You have been the fundraiser, in the room that conferences we're going to talk about today with GiveCon are literally built for. So I'm curious, when you stepped into this event director role, which I would also love to talk all about at Bloomerang, what did you see, or what were you told at GiveCon was so different, and how have you kind of made it your own as you step into this role as somebody who's been the one attending things like this?
I've attended conferences, right? Not just as a practitioner and not just as an event planner, but I think so many of these conferences are a little bit too high level and theoretical, right? We're talking about strategy. We're not actually no implementation, right? And I think so many others don't necessarily solve that Monday morning problem that you're encountering, right? They're not realistic in that regard.
That's good,
and
yeah.
Separating strategy from execution, they work hand in hand, right? And so there's something else that I've experienced over the years. GiveCon, though, is totally different. I'm a former fundraiser. So many of us on the team are former fundraisers. And so it is built by fundraisers, not just for fundraisers, right? So we understand that.
It's a big difference.
Oh, completely. 100%, right? We really see the opportunity to make it practically actionable, to really focus on real world application. I don't want just inspiration. I want people to be able to take things and run with it and implement it the minute they're walking out of a session or as they're meeting with their donor next week. I want things that are going to be fast and easy for these folks to turn around. And then we also really have focused, and this is a big, Bloomerang believes in this, and obviously GiveCon is hosted by Bloomerang, but it is designed for organizations of all sizes and realities. And so
Okay.
this isn't just not for the organization starting out at $200,000 and not for an organization just raising $50 million. This is for anyone in any size. We have teams that are coming with like 5+ people. We have teams of
Mm-hmm.
one that are the only staff person or maybe a volunteer run organization. So we really believe that GiveCon is built for all shapes and sizes of nonprofits.
Very cool. What do you think, from your experience being on the fundraiser side, is the most beneficial thing about? I'm a big believer in person and attending in-person events. What do you think is the most important, crucial thing that someone should do when they step foot into an experience like this?
You need an out of office up, and you need to be able to actually, you've got to actually step
That's
out of the
so
work.
good. Thank you for saying that.
You've got to step out of the work. And so like supervisors, bosses, organizational leaders need to understand that like you are there to focus your time on learning. That is your priority in that moment. Not, hey, I've got an event in 3 weeks and I'm still trying to execute while I'm
Right.
maybe listening in the background. We're not built to multitask like that. It's a challenge. And so like really being present is going to be the most important thing.
That is the most fabulous answer to that question that I did not see you going, but that is great. How can you make sure that you can be completely present and put on an out of office and respect your out of office?
Boundaries.
I will say boundaries. I am horrible at that. I put on my out of office, and of course I'm checking, responding to things, which I am.
I do the same.
We got
to practice what we preach probably a little bit, Data.
That's right. That's right. Oh my gosh. Okay. Do you have any networking hacks?
Networking for me is a little bit of a challenge. And I find that fascinating considering that I love events and like I've planned so many. I think being willing to introduce yourself is probably the first step of like sit beside a stranger, like, where are you from? What do you do? What's your role? Like, I think those are easy things. But, showing up and being present, asking questions. I also think it's a great thing whenever we're going to have like at GiveCon, we'll have some affinity type group meetings where like, in lunch one day, you're able to sit with like size organizations, or maybe find like individuals from certain states or the LGBT community, whatever that's going to be. Like, what are those affinity groups where you maybe bond with people?
Yeah.
Showing up to the receptions. We also do like a welcome reception. We also have an offsite party for everyone. And I think that also brings kind of that level down a little bit to let people really enter your like normal day-to-day
more informal.
Yeah. Right. And like just to be a human being and to show up versus like always having to like show up at a higher level and really kind of have that game face on. Okay, we can bring it down a little bit. We're all human. Let's connect on a different level.
So good. I know we've been talking about this event. It's May 17th through 20th in St. Louis. And I'm not going to bury the lead, but since you're listening, if you have been interested in attending a conference this year and this is sounding intriguing to you, we're going to get into more of the details. But you can there's a link in the show notes to the event itself, to GiveCon. You can enter a code M, the number 2, and then M, so M2M, permissions to movements, if you get what I'm throwing down there. And you'll get $200 off your ticket. So don't lose out, snag that. In St. Louis, May 17th to 20th. So you worked for Thread Strategies as well. I did a little bit of LinkedIn stalking, Andrew.
Yeah.
And
love
you were
my friends
working
at Thread.
Thread. You spent 3 years and you were working inside small nonprofits where typically, and I'm sure you see this a lot at Bloomerang, like one person is running all of fundraising and probably a few extra things on the side. But then at the Epilepsy Foundation, you were scaling 60 plus events nationally. There's a wide range of organizations, right, as we know of, across the board, that you find people walking into an event like this needing that they might not be able to articulate themselves. It's those things where it's like, we think we're going in for one thing, but I actually need this. And how do you, as an event planner in this role, create that?
I think such a big topic, right? How do we solve for what that looks like? Fundraisers coming to conferences, we really want them to have clarity, walking away with prioritization, with confidence and the ability to work smarter, right? Like pretty simple stuff at the end of the day, right? Like, I don't think any of that's like mind blowing in any shape,
Totally.
form, or fashion. At Thread, when I was, consulting, we were working with so many different organizations that were, like you just mentioned, tiny, small teams. And, most of them were connected to the organization from a personal
Mm-hmm.
standpoint, mother, daughter, sister, brother, someone was impacted and they decided to make a change. Whereas, like at the Epilepsy Foundation, we were really focused on those scalable events, engaging the community, right? Like, how can we double and triple nationwide growth? That's what we were focused on. And so, I don't know if fundraisers don't necessarily need more ideas,
Mm.
right? At the end of the day, like, I mean, I have those examples. I'm sure others listening have examples where, like, a board member pulls you aside and says, I have an idea, or let me tell you about this that I think would really help us out, right? I want
Yeah.
to host a golf tournament or a gala. And it's overwhelming hearing this stuff, especially like we hear this all the time. I think what fundraisers really need, though, is like the clarity to determine what matters most and the confidence to focus on the right things.
Yeah.
Small organizations
Mm.
need more of that like system and focus, where I think the larger organizations, once they've matured out of that small organization, they're going to need a little bit more alignment and scalability. Fundraisers are going to have to take away, like, what are those time saving strategies and proven strategies that are actually going to help them do the work,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. That's good.
And GiveCon, so like we design our sessions to really reduce noise. We want to have the connections with others that normalize the challenges we're facing, and to really have tools and templates, like for everyone attending to have tools and the templates and actionable learnings that are going to help drive their mission further, not just theories, right? Like, what are
Yeah.
you walking away from each session throughout the day where you can take a snippet here, implement it, and it's going to only help your organization?
Love that. One thing that I've done whenever I attend events is I try and really scour and research who are the speakers and
Mm,
panelists and connect with them in advance. And because I know their schedules are busy, can I meet with you if you're really interested in a specific topic?
yeah,
Talking about clarity, like if you've really figured out, like, I'm coming here specifically for blank and blank, right? Then how can I carve out and find like this speaker? Yeah, I want to listen to them, but I also want to ask them this question, this one
exactly.
big question. Do you have time beforehand or afterwards, whatever, to grab a coffee, whatnot? Or going up to a member of your team and saying, hey, these are my top priorities while I'm here. Who do you
Hmm.
think would be great to chat with? Because you guys have so many client customer stories in your heads, I'm sure, that you could be like,
Yeah,
you know what? Let me see if I can find and actually do like a one-on-one connection with. So I think the clarity, and I loved you said the confidence to have the clarity and to focus on it is huge. And then who are the connections that you can make time for? Because kind of to your point earlier, like networking can be hard, but not really if you're like zoomed in, hyper focused on.
yes. And I love the research that you mentioned. I think that's like allows you to do that with such stronger focus, right? Like, if
Yeah.
you're walking in with a list of who you want to target to try to get a coffee with, or 10 minutes, can we sit together during lunch, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
those are the kinds of things that like everyone's going to be doing. So how can you utilize those times in a smarter way to build capacity?
Yeah, 1,000%. I always am having little like working connection meetings now at conferences and events instead of normally sitting there and opening up my laptop by myself and working.
I'm guilty. Yeah, guilty as charged. Yep, yep, yep.
We are in a world hungry for change, and nonprofit impact matters more than ever. Yet every day, you're asked to do more with less time, fewer resources, and tools that weren't built for the way nonprofits actually work. But what could you do with more? That's the promise of Bloomerang. They are a trusted giving platform built for purpose. Bloomerang integrates fundraising, donor, and volunteer management into one really intuitive platform. It really connects your data to reveal real opportunities, showing you who's ready to give, when to reach out, and how to deepen every single relationship. So instead of juggling a bunch of systems, you're building momentum. And instead of guessing, you're truly guided by insights. And we're not settling for good enough anymore. We're raising more, retaining more, and inspiring more generosity year after year. When tools are built for a purpose, your mission truly goes further. More connections, more confidence, more impact. And that's how we like it. So you can learn more about how you can do more with more at bloomerang.com. That's BLOOMERANG.com. Okay, so I want to also talk about something that probably happens a lot. And you might be listening, listener, and you're like, I really want to attend something like this or this event itself. Okay, and you probably have dealt with this yourself, Andrew, or consult with clients that do, but getting either an executive director, leadership, or a board to approve conferences and or travel can be a barrier. Now,
Yeah.
we've already done like $200 off codes. Like there definitely is that. And I'm sure you've had to make the case before for investments. How should somebody build the case for GiveCon or an event similar, right? Like what should they realistically say, like, this is what I'm going to bring home, or what's normally like your go-to?
I think this is probably a challenge across all nonprofits, right? Like you've got limited funds. Typically, there's not a ton of money in professional development, even though there should be, right? One, on the GiveCon website, we actually do have a letter that would help support anyone to like build the case so that you can present it to leadership. I would hope that people can take that, riff on it, be able to like expand on what they're looking to accomplish, right? I think it's a good starting place, but that's not going to meet everyone's needs for proving or asking for the money that they're going to request from leadership. From my standpoint, I'm going to take this a little bit different direction. One, for the leaders listening, I would just say like invest in your people, right? Like it's such a simple thing, but we've got to make sure that like our staff and the community really are able to have this investment so that they can help bring results to the organization. And it builds motivation. So like staff retention and like turnover with fundraisers is super high. We know this, right? Like, I mean, I have hopped around because I knew that my way to move up was to move out and move up as I went, right? And so like I was open to opportunities. And so I think this is one of the ways where like you're able to really help hone in the skills that your staff has by showing them the investment of what you're able to make. I would also say for leaders listening, if they're going to come to GiveCon and or any other conference, don't make them do a presentation for the board of what they learned or for staff, right? Like I don't see that much in the corporate space. And I'm not sure how this is. I think it's become that like necessary proof of what someone's learning.
Oh my gosh, I've never heard that.
Right. Like you never hear about anyone at one of these major corporations attending that's, worth hundreds of millions of dollars, attending a conference and going back and presenting to their team on what they learned.
No, it's more like, let's just apply this and see the results. Yeah,
exactly. And that's my proof here of like what we should be doing. So like, if you're thinking about total investment, maybe this is like $1,800, $2,000, whatever this amount may totally be for your organization. If you think about it from a budgetary standpoint, right? Like for $1 million organization, that's going to be like 0.001% of your budget, right? So very small, very small. But think about the impact, right? Your staff goes, they bring back tools, they're bringing back like new ways of working, they're understanding their tools in a smarter, stronger way.
I always felt seen.
Yeah, they feel seen.
I felt seen by my leadership whenever I got sent to something. I felt trusted.
Yeah.
I remember in my like early years, and I was in New York City at the time, and I was being sent to events in Los Angeles. And one, I had never been really out in California. And so for me, I was like, wow, this is such a cool opportunity. Like totally different perspectives, talking with different people, being able to be given that responsibility and trust. I felt like, wow, okay, this is like next level. You get a little pride, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And that's a huge deal for what you're talking about, the retention and everything. I would go download the letter, but I think that's a way bigger proof point.
Completely. Like when we think about it from an impact standpoint of like, okay, so you are spending a little bit of this money, right? And then let's say they come back and they've got like end of year goal for running a campaign at, let's use $100,000, and they exceed their goal by 10%, which has never been done before. The impact of that small investment has already returned results, right, for the organization. So it's going to pay for itself. And I think beyond that, like we talked about skill development, we talked about tools, you're avoiding costly mistakes, right? Because they may hear examples of something that like they were thinking about doing.
Yeah.
And then they're not going to, due to some of the lessons of networking, sitting in the sessions, listening to the other speakers of like, I was going to do this, or we've always done this with our auction, but now we're changing it to only X or Y, right? Like avoiding those mistakes is only going to help your organization. And then as you mentioned, yeah, Dana, I mean, like the confidence. I mean, that is like, I can't even speak to the level of that investment of like what that says to your staff members about how you care about them and really want them to like develop further as a human being, but as an employee, someone that's able to drive impact.
Yeah, I love that. I want to flip it a little bit and ask you a question about events in general, because also listeners, many of you run your own events. Andrew, in your experience, what do you think makes a standout event experience?
I mean, it's event experience, right? So like, as I think about this, I think about people that there's a few things for me that are like big no-nos, right? And I probably can go down this line more. Lines. I don't have lines at like, when I think about events, I want people walking up and customer service is there. So like, I think about registration. You don't want registration with a line of 50 people where it's going to take someone 20 to 30 minutes to get in the door to your event. That's already a terrible experience, right? So that's one. I even think about like lines from a perspective of like a bar and food, right? Like I don't, for generally speaking, like, bars, okay. But like after you've waited a little bit in time, especially if it's a fundraiser where you're serving guests that have spent hundreds of dollars, thousands of dollars to be at this event, it should be moving. It should be well equipped to where they are receiving whatever they're expecting in a faster mentality, because that is service.
That is so funny that you mentioned that. I was just at an event and multiple friends of mine commented about the bar. And they're like, it seemed like the bartender was trying to serve slowly. That was something they called out. That was like a memory of the...
Fascinating. And people remember this stuff. And I think that's the funny thing is like something so simple, like getting a drink. If that's what you're walking away from this event from, like that was not the experience you wanted, right? And so I think about what's going to leave the lasting impression. It's the same thing of like, I walk away from events thinking about the food, like you also just mentioned. Okay, like, was this actually decent for like one, what I paid and what I expected? Or am I going to still have to order some type of delivery or run through some type of fast food on the way home to make sure I'm actually full before I have to go to sleep to wake up the next day?
Right.
It's simple. But I think all these things like really add up to where like people want to come back. Your driving experiences drive what people remember. Totally. They're not going to necessarily, especially for folks that aren't connected to the mission, you don't have necessarily that personal, that personal connection. And so you've got to think about this from a little bit of an outsider perspective of like, how can I drive how our event's going to be perceived, and then build it from there from a public standpoint.
One of my favorite books, you've probably read it, Unreasonable Hospitality. By Will Guidara. Yeah. So it just talks about how do you create an unreasonable hospitality atmosphere in whatever you're doing. And that does not have to mean an unreasonable budget to create it. It's just very thoughtful moments. That could be very simple, but just again, thoughtful and personalized. Okay. Well, one last question. Based on everything you've built, everything that you're hearing from the sector right now, I know there's so much going on in the world. Again, GiveCon, it's May 17th to the 20th in St. Louis. For the people that are going to be there, what do you think they're going to leave with that they just, in this moment of time, couldn't get anywhere else?
There's just so much from like executive directors to operations to development team members with how everyone's expected to do more with less, right? Like we hear about everyone losing, especially here in the States, everyone losing grant funding, right? From government grants that they've had. But so thinking about this a little bit more, it's where are people going to thrive with GiveCon, right? What team member is being asked to figure out something when your budget didn't increase, when you're down a staff member, because there is that turnover, because you're not investing in your staff, when you're asked to just add on another project that wasn't necessarily in your job responsibilities, but somehow you all have to execute as a group, as a staff contingency within your nonprofit. Those are the folks that I think are really going to be able to take things away from GiveCon in a really strong way. And, thinking about it, if you've ever left a conference inspired, but unsure of what to actually do next, I think GiveCon is designed to fix that, right? Like we want you to walk away with those tools, with those assets to be able to directly implement from the day that you leave.
Amazing. It's so fun to actually get to talk to somebody who's creating the event before it happens. I think that's such a rarity. So thank you so much for being here today and sharing just event logistics and inspiration for being there. And I hope a lot of times life is so busy before we attend a conference and then all of a sudden we're just there.
Yeah.
But if we can do a little bit of the prep work and recommendations of what Andrew gave today, then we can just really settle in to make sure that you walk away with that really hyper-personalized, tangible experience with tactical ideas that you're looking for. So don't forget, click the link in the show notes if you want to attend and use the code M2M. Again, I'll have that in the show notes too for the $200 off. And you'll have a fabulous time this spring. Andrew,
join us.
Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah,
that's right.
Thank you, Dana. We appreciate it.
You're so welcome.
Thank you so much for tuning into today's episode of Missions to Movements. If you enjoyed our conversation and found it helpful, I would love for you to take a moment to leave a review wherever you're listening. Your feedback helps us reach more change makers like you and continue bringing impactful stories and strategies to the show. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button too, so you'll never miss an episode. And until next time, keep turning your mission into a movement.